Hello, Mustang fans, and welcome to another episode of the Mustang Owners Podcast. I'm John Clore, I'm the Enthusiast Communications Manager for Ford Performance, and my co-host is Mike Ray, who is the president of the Mustang Owners Club of Southeastern Michigan, or MOXM, and the president of the International Council of Mustang Clubs. Mike, it's always great that we have a great Mustang story and a great Mustang designer with us, because those guys seem to have the most fun at Ford Motor Company.
Yeah, and you know what? The enthusiasts that are listening and watching, they don't get to see all these guys all the time. They're always hidden behind the scenes. So we're going to have some good stories tonight from a very influential designer from the Mustang world.
Absolutely. You know, ladies and gentlemen, this is why we love to bring you, everyone has a Mustang story. We love to bring you these inside stories from all the cars, the collectors, the clubs, the characters, and yes, the celebrities that take care of our Mustang hobby for us. And so tonight we're welcoming Melvin Betancourt, our former Ford Mustang designer. Melvin, welcome to the Mustang Owners Podcast.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
No, I tell you what, Melvin, to know that over your, I think somebody said it was almost 35 years at Ford Motor Company, of all the Mustangs you've touched over all those years, I know that I think you were on the Explorer team for a while. You did that as well, which is another, Mike, you would say, a pretty influential car for the company.
Yeah.
But this is the Mustang Owners Podcast, so we love to talk about all the times that you messed with Mustang. Melvin, tell us how you got into this mess coming to Ford, and were you really targeting just to get on something like Mustang, or was it just cars in general?
No, it was just cars in general. I was born and raised in New York. My aspiration was growing up was to be a domestic foreign mechanic. I went to a high school called Automotive High School. And you came out of there either as a certified A mechanic or a certified body repair guy. I chose mechanic. And one of the things that we did do there is we competed for the Chrysler troubleshooting contest.
Oh, okay.
And we won it. We ended up winning it, high school versus college. And one of the prizes that we got, aside from tools and jackets and things like that, was we toured engineering and we toured design center. And when I walked into the design center, that's when I said, that's what I want to do for a living.
Well, I'll tell you what, Mike, I still drive those, three build boxes and put little round wheels on them. It looks like a kindergarten to put them together. And I don't know how you guys do it, Melvin, because it's not just the skill of being able to draw and conceptualize a Mustang. As you know, there's just so much, there's something in your head. It's just something about designing cars that kind of, and we've been lucky to have you, Melvin. I'm telling you, the last few years of Mustang. Mike, how many home runs can this car hit over 61 years?
Right. Yeah.
Well, so somehow you thought, well, I could go to Ford. Who was the design manager at the time that you came to the company?
Well, I was working at General Motors when I was going to college. So I kind of whittled my way from engineering to an internship in design. And I started working with Chuck Jordan. But when I finished my senior year, I was working with Homer Legassi. Wow. Everybody that went to CCS knows him. And then from there, he gave me an inspiration to try and seek out Ford. And I met Jack Telenak, and I kind of hit it off with him. And went back and forth. But at the end of the day, he gave me an offer I couldn't refuse. And I went to Ford. And I started working on things like in Lincoln. From Lincoln, I went to Advance. From Advance, we were traveling too. The good thing about that at that time was we used to travel all over the world. Yeah. And I ended up going to Kia to do the new town car concept and the Jag, the SK X6.
Oh, yeah.
And but anyway, to make a long story short, because I was there for 36 years, I landed in Mustang when I started doing, I was a lead designer or senior designer for the 1999 model year. And then from there, I basically worked on Mustang all the way up to 2023. Wow. But in between that, I had the 011 Explorer. So I worked on a lot of iconic vehicles. I did the first generation Edge MKX. Okay. And when I say I did, it's because I managed it. I got really lucky after 10 years with the company. I became a design manager. I had a great team. Anybody that tells you that they did the car themselves, they're lying.
Yeah.
Because you have an amazing team behind you to get the work done.
Yeah, and it really is that. I mean, Mike and I were fortunate enough to know Gail Halderman, and he told us
Yep.
until Iacocca came along where he forced his designers to go travel. And at the time in the 60s, they had a travel restriction, and Iacocca said, go anyway, go to the Paris Auto Show and go. You know, he really wanted the exposure from all over the world. It wasn't, so just focused on the American market. And Telnack, of course, he came over, I think it was in Australia for a while as well.
Yeah.
I think part of the reason he was named the design chief, and Mike, he's been on the podcast a couple times. What a great guy Jack is. And how many people, Mike, have we heard talking about his influence on hiring someone that we get to talk to on the podcast that became a great Mustang?
I can definitely see Melvin and Jack getting along very, very well. They're kind of the same person, just different generation.
Well, Melvin, so getting exposed to that Mustang project, somehow, you being that you were on other projects, Lincoln or even, anything you did on the SUVs, there's just a different vibe when you're working on the Mustang. How do you explain that? That's just different than being in the other studios and working on other cars.
Well, I'm going to tell you, the thing that I feel moved the needle in Mustang was the 2005. And I had, Jay Mays was fairly new there too. And he had brought me into his office and he says, Melvin, I want a retro car, but I also want a modern car. Yeah. And at the time we were looking at the surfaces of BMW and things like that. I had a BMW 3 Series in the studio, and then I also had a 68, 69, 70, and a 71 in the studio. And one of the things that people probably won't know is that the designers that were working with me at the time, we literally took about a week to wash the cars. And the only reason why I say that is because you're feeling the surfaces. Yeah, you're falling in love with the what I call iconic cues of the Mustang. Another thing that we did too is once the cars were dry, we would actually see who can tape the best line on the side of the car, which is an art because when you're outside in the courtyard and it's windy and the winds are blowing and you're trying to lay a straight line, you got to play with the wind too. But it's just another way of feeling the car, feeling the emotion of the car. And then that was just before we even put pen to paper. Yeah. And then we also look at trends, what's hot at the time, what can we look at, what can we bring as far as technology and things like that. So there's a lot of things that we look at, but at the same token, we don't forget where we came from.
Well, it's hard to imagine.
One other thing I can share with you really quick is we did the same thing, like what I call the iconic Mustangs. The 05 moved the needle from E to full. Yeah. Same thing with the 15. Same thing with the 2020 GT500. And I've always taken the lead car, whether it's the GT or the car that sold the most, and used that as my proportional package of the car, right? So when we started doing the GT500, I took the GT350, the lowest point at the center line of the hood, and by far in production, that was the lowest point. So I started that with the 500. Now I'm going to go through and give you a quick synopsis on it, but towards the end, when we came up with the grill in that fuselage feel on the front end, they wanted to put, because of aero, a 10 mil radii around that grill, which would have destroyed the grill. So we went to the wind tunnel and we were just testing out spoilers, diffusers, flappers, and things like that. And I just kept messing with the front, and I kept bringing the front tip a millimeter or half a millimeter at a time. And when you compare, because a lot of people say to me, the GT500 nose looks slower than the GT350. The 350 is slower than the 500, and it's slower by 4.5 millimeters. That's how much I raised the 500 in order to get my 2.5, 3 mil radii that goes all the way around the grill.
Oh, wow. See, Mike,
There's a little story there.
Yeah, wow.
Well, Mike and I have to agree with you. There are landmark cars, some cars that are metamorphosis of the ones that came from, and you're trying to hit that sweet spot in the market. Every time tastes change. In the first gen when they went to the 68 body with a bigger engine, the car turned more muscular. The big horses, they were longer because people wanted them more luxury, and then nobody wanted hot rods at all. They wanted the fuel economy, and the twos came out and sold almost 400,000. I mean, hitting that sweet spot. And then, when Telnac came out with the Fox body, that was so different for everybody. That was just a slab-sided, But look at the Fox body following now, Melvin. I mean, it's amazing.
Oh yeah.
And then I think you're right. When Mike and I were both smitten when the 05 came out, and it's 25 years ago. Oh, 20 years ago. That's right, 05 to 2025.
It's crazy.
And we can't believe, we both bought an S197, and we can't believe that design is 20 years old. But to us, Melvin, that it took all the wonderful, I mean, when you closed your eyes, you could take all the badges off an S197 and know it's a Mustang. It just has that shape, and it's got that stance, and it's got, I mean, the nose is right. It just screams what Mustang is, and yet it's not, it's not a 65 body put on a brand new chassis.
Well, and when we did that car, one of the things that the designers and I always talked about was we wanted a modern car, even though we wanted to do it retro, but we also wanted to pay heritage to the front, right? So to me, the front looks, you can say, oh, it's a modern version of 69. And then the back, you can say, oh, that's a modern version of the 1970.
Yeah.
So, keeping that all in mind, but at the same time, making it modern, that car really, really made a revolution when it came to the surface, because it didn't even have a haunch.
Yeah.
And I remember when we came out that car, that was the only thing that I always in the background kind of bothered me.
Yeah.
So, but it was still a stunning, beautiful surface car, and I called it the sheer car, because the tumble home and everything was just going through. Including when the plan view, when you look at the car in the plan view, you may think the car doesn't have a lot of plan view, but it does.
Well, Mr. Ray had to add a ducktail spoiler to his.
Yeah, but when I first seen the commercial of the 05s, I'm like, I gotta have it.
Yeah, I know. We all got smitten by that babe. But Melvin, that's something that we wanted to talk to you a little bit about. Was especially when you get into the performance variants. I know you messed with worked on the Bullet. You messed with the California Special. Those cars, each have their own, design heritage, which you have to pay attention to, because you don't want to be, when Pontiac brought the Holden out as a GTO, no one thought it was a GTO because it looked nothing like a GTO, even with the
right.
So you guys had, knowing the Bullet movie, you had to get that right. Then Cal Specials always had that. They had just little tricks to it. They used the Shelby pieces on it. And that was special. But for us, the GT500, when you did that car looks like it's going 100 miles an hour parked. And I think, and as opposed to a GT350 is a race car, we get that. But I think when you did the 500, you really hit that. That's there's something about the presence of that car. I mean, it's unmistakable. And at least for most people, they don't see it in their rearview mirror too long because they're looking at taillights. But man, that must have been. Did you get a chance to even go over to the Shelby team and talk to those guys, or did you look at a lot of Shelby images? And how'd you get so much Shelby in an SVT Cobra, basically?
Well, the thing with that particular car, I'm going to say from the beginning, that was a cross-functional team car, and what I mean by that was design, engineering, and the aero team. And obviously marketing. But those three teams is what basically put that car on the map. I remember every morning I would have a meeting with David Parasak, because he was the chief engineer, and we would have our powwows and say this, and that. And I remember when he came to me and he says, Melvin, I have a problem. I said, my rotors are too big, so I'm going to have to give you a bigger wheel. And I'm like, when do we say small to small? We always want bigger, right? So that's how we came, because most cars have 19-inch wheels performance-wise, right? So that the GT500 was the first one to actually have 20s, and was a performance vehicle, but it was more for to take the capacity of the rotors. But in that car, we remember we were looking at fighter jets. We were looking at a lot of airplanes, a lot of boats. But one of the things that we did look at, one of the reviews, like early preliminaries, we had 3 cars that we showed Dave Parasak and the team, the leadership team, and we had a car that was like 500 miles,
Wow.
600 miles, 700 miles. And the one that always had the lead to be the GT500 that you know today was the one that always looked like it was going 700 miles an hour standing still. So it's so funny that you, John, you touched base on that because it just brought a lot of memories back.
Well, with Parasak, Mike didn't enamor himself with we didn't know. I mean, Parasak being an engineer, I don't know how he got very vocal about design, and then that's how he ran into Mike Ray. Because I don't know, Mike, were you called in? Was it Ford calling in the clubs? How did you wind up getting to speak about Mustang design in front of Parasak?
Yeah, this was for so back in 2009, before the refresh and the GT500 that was coming out, when Jamal was on the team for the GT500, and we got to go to Flat Rock as the board of directors for the club, just to give some give an overview and some feedback to the new vehicles getting ready to launch before they actually launched. So we got to go there, and my favorite story we've told us a million times, and it literally bonded me and Dave Parasak forever, is I was walking around the car, and I didn't know who he was at the time. And I walked around the back, and he's like, "What do you think of the car?" I go, "I really don't like the taillights. They look like a Honda." And he goes, "How you doing? I'm Dave Parasak, chief engineer." And that's how I met Dave. And we're like literally best friends to this day. I talk to the guy every single week.
I teased him, Melvin, that I don't know how you guys can be designers, because you put everything you've got in your mind and in your imagination, you put it in that clay. They render it, and then it's made into a car, and then you get some clown from a club coming up to you and saying, "I don't like it." I mean, I don't. That's so hard, Mike. That's like rejection. I mean, look at when your club attacked Bud McGaldy, saying, "How could you put horizontal taillights on the SN95?" And it took us 2 years to put them back this way. Remember? And Bud,
right? Yeah.
He must have. He did explain it about the body line and how.
Yeah, the body lines. That's why they did it. Yeah.
I mean, he was really great as a designer, does explain things. But Melvin, I mean, how do you not wear your heart on your sleeve every time any little thing that you put in there has changed?
The way I look at it is, if I did a car, or if my team helped design and we got a car into production, and someone looked at it and they said, it's okay, it's a good looking car, then I fail as a designer. But if someone comes up to me and says, "I really love the car," or "I really hate the car," now I invoke some sort of emotion in you. So I did my job.
Oh, there you go.
So that's what I look at. And even though, with the good comes the bad, but you also got to learn from the bad. You can't be like, "Oh, you don't know what you're talking about." Something invoked him to say, "I don't like it." So I usually try and talk a little bit more and try and see what is making him come up with that negative feedback. But one of the other things I used to do too was, whenever the auto shows, especially when we did a car that was turning the needle, I would just show up. Sometimes I show up with my son, and we just kind of just hang around the car and just listen to people.
Yeah.
And to me, that's the best market research you can do.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Because the next car that comes, you already know what people are saying about the current car and what they would like to have fixed in the new car. So
it's tough. It's
a win-win situation.
Mustang, everybody's got their favorites and their favorite generation. I remember when I was doing the S550 book, and everyone said, "Oh, it looks like a Fusion," and then I said, "Really?" I mean, and then with that old fist, Mike, remember they tried to discuss the front end was more like a fist.
Yeah.
It was a big departure from S197. Hard for a lot of us to get used to it, but generally, Melvin, I'd say over every generation there was either instant recognition that this is cool and they bought it right away, or people gradually. I mean, look, Mike, an S5. Can you imagine your club doing a show without S550s?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they are right now. They're they're number one, and it's hard to find some members who will go out and say, "Hey, I'll go get my first gen or my second or third gen to bring them," because now there's so many kids getting in S550s, and they're all into the new car. Even the 650, that design changes, even little changes. Now they're saying, "Oh, it looks like a Camaro," and I go, "Really? Can you show me a 2025 Camaro?"
Yeah.
There isn't one.
Exactly.
How do you call that one, right, Mike?
Yeah.
So Melvin, after all these years at Ford, Mike and I were talking about a lot of the designers. We talked to Beamer and all the guys. I don't know how they stay friends with Mike because he's so opinionated. He has to learn the politics of. No, Mike, you're great with those guys. But we were talking, and he said, "Hey, did you see that Betancourt? I thought you'd be retired and having a good time going to Florida and hanging out with the grandchildren. And what happens? You wind up going to Steeda. So now,
Yes.
How in the heck did you get hooked up? I mean, let's face it, aftermarket cars are hot. Everybody and their brother wants something different. But what a marriage made in heaven to do a Steeda.
Yeah. Well, the beauty about it is it was basically a romance that started from the beginning, because not only did I work on Mustang and the iconic vehicles, but I also worked on the SEMA show. And I came on board back in 1991. And when I joined the SEMA, I think we used to call it the imaging team.
Yeah, the image team. Yeah.
And when I went there for the first time, it was a trailer with apparel, t-shirts, hats, and all that, a couple of engines and a couple of cars. That was it. And then if you really paid attention from 91 all the way 27 years later, because that's how long I ran SEMA, it evolved, and it evolved to a lot. So what I always liked when I ran SEMA is I always looked at the cars, whether it was Lincoln, Ford, or whatever platform it was, as the foundation, right? That is your basement to build. And then I would use the aftermarket companies as my bells and whistles, right? So they're building the house on the foundation. Now, if you go to SEMA and you say, "Oh my God, I love that Mustang. I gotta have that Mustang. I'm gonna make that Mustang." Well, you need my foundation.
Right.
What does that mean? You gotta go buy the car.
Yeah.
And then you go to my partners, whether it's Steeda or Air Design or any of these companies that do body kit, suspension, exhaust system, superchargers, turbos. I mean, it's all there. But to me, it's a collaboration of families, right? Family being the main house, which is Ford, and then the suppliers and vendors that work hard with us. And I echo, or I should say, I give a lot of accolades to the vendors that pick our cars, because when they pick our cars, it's basically another form of putting our cars out there, but in a different light.
Oh yeah, I've seen them. Mike, when did you first? Were you going to SEMA with Roush, or when did you first get out to SEMA?
Well, I went a couple times as a spectator around the 2010 time frame, but yeah, 2015 through 18, I ran the Roush booth outside at Ford out front. So that was my little baby there. But I first ran into Melvin back in the Mustang Dream giveaway days, where he was designing those cars, and then also at Air Venture, where he designed a lot of the charity Mustangs that were going out there as well. So, seen him along those paths. But yeah, at SEMA too, and I'm sure we crossed paths there too. But yeah, SEMA's just a huge world, and it was very fun. It was a lot of work, but those years that I was out there, running the Roush area, it was fun. We had our parties, and it was just, you got to see so many people out there, and being outside, you can get more of the public out there too, because they weren't welcomed in the inside back then.
Right, but
Absolutely.
Melvin with Derry Orlando and the guys, the not just Shelby cars, but the Steeda is in with the Roushes, and then you've got Celine's. Those really kind of drive new ideas. You can do things as an aftermarket company that you can't do as Ford Motor Company. And so I know you can't give us any trade secrets, but are you working on a new Celine, and are they giving you a free hand?
Steeda. Not Celine.
I meant to, because that's the guy you're competing with. Celine is the one that people talk about design all the time, Mike, don't they? I like the Celine with the design. Now Melvin at Steeda, that might cause a lot
A whole
of
new dynamic, huh?
yeah.
It's a whole new dynamic. We at Steeda just came out with the Q850, and we're doing it in 3 levels, or stages, I should say. Stage 1 just came out, and then we're going to come out with stage 2. I really can't say what stage 2 is all about. And then we're going to have stage 3, which will be all the bells and whistles with some aftermarket body apparels and unique striping and things like that. But yeah, I'm excited. Towards the fall, we'll be coming out with the stage 3 Steeda.
We're excited for you,
Q850.
Melvin. That's very, very cool. And to see that your design work continues into the Mustang world, we can't wait to see it. Mike, I'm sure will drag us into that as soon as he gets a word on it. So stay in touch with us, will you?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, we appreciate you taking the time out to catch up with us tonight. And thanks again for joining us on the Mustang Owners Podcast.
Yeah. No, thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, it was our pleasure. Mike, that was a great one. We really enjoy, especially when we get to talk.
We got to have him on again.
Yeah, talking design is.
Anytime, just call me.
That sounds great. All right, folks. Well, that's a wrap for this edition of the Mustang Owners Podcast. But don't forget to check out FordPerformance.com for all the news stories that we put on there every week in the articles section. So check us out there. And if you want to know what Mike's Mega Club is up to, you can check out Moxham.com as well. And if you have any suggestions, ideas, or comments, you can send them to us at Ford's own one-way-in email address for all of you enthusiasts, but you may not know about it. It's clubhub@ford.com. That's clubhub@ford.com. And send it to us, and we'll check it out for our next episode. Thanks again for joining us. We'll just have to catch you next time down the road.